Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Week Ahead, a podcast by SBM Intelligence. I'm your host, Bisolas, and every Saturday, we look at some stories shaping our continent. First, we head over to Kenya, where Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua faces impeachment over serious allegations, including self-enrichment and inciting ethnic hatred. Is a feud with President Ruto now out in the open? How will this reshape the future of leadership in the country? And what will be the effect on the region? Then we come to Nigeria to discuss last weekend's local elections in Rivers State and the violent aftermath, which has seen multiple fatalities and the burning of local government offices. The political landscape in that state is becoming increasingly turbulent, given the problems between Governor Sim Fubara and his predecessor, Wike. What does all this mean for governance in the state? Finally, we discuss the NNPC's decision to end its exclusive purchase agreement with Dangote Refinery. This move opens the floodgates for marketers to negotiate directly with the refinery, setting the stage for changes in pricing and the potential end of subsidies. What does this mean for Nigerians? Joining me for insights on these stories are Ayotunde Abiodun and Veronica Igube, analysts at SBM Intelligence. Welcome, Veronica and Ayotunde.
Thank you, Peace.
It's great to be here. Yeah, good to have you. All right. So on our first story, which is on Kenya, the impeachment motion against Deputy President was brought in light of several allegations like corruption, subordination, ethnic politics, divisive ethnic politics, and misuse of public office. There are also charges that he amassed assets that were worth far more than his salary, his yearly salary. There's also been many accusations along him making public statements against the president or supporting the protest. But my question on this, because basically many people think that this is due to a fallout between him and the president. So my first question is to you, Veronica. What do you think were the factors that led to the fallout between the deputy president and President Ruto, considering that in the 2022 election, when the president will be voted in, he was one of his main supporters. In fact, was able to secure the votes of his ethnic group, I think the Kikuyu ethnic group, for the president. So what happened? What led to this fallout all of a sudden?
So when you follow like news and report is when the protest started, the president also needed to take action, right, and do something to be able to calm the people down, as well as ensure that the state would be safe. So one of the things that he tried to do was to change his cabinet. And in changing his cabinet, of course, it would not go down well with a lot of his supporters. And his deputy president was one of the people who like championed for him as well and helped him to get the elections. So obviously, it would look like he's removing some of the people who had helped them build the coalition and as well as help them get into power. So there may be like certain disagreements in that aspect to say, why are you removing our people? These are the people that supported us. But the president as well has that leadership and needed to take charge of ensuring that the country was stabilized. Another thing is like there are stories of a political rift between both of them. Although the president hasn't outrightly come out to make any statements as to that, he also hasn't come out to support or oppose the motion, which is trying to get his deputy out of power. Although the deputy president has also come out to refuse the charges to say, well, these are baseless, this is just a witch hunt for my enemies. But we're also waiting to see what the president will do, because in someone's silence, people will just make assumptions to say, okay, that means there's a political rift. That means there's a divide between both of them. It also shows that their political relations is also divided. But in the coming time, we would see what will happen, what stance the president will take. Now it's just quiet, and we have already seen what the parliamentarians have done. They have voted and they have voted loudly. They have voted 281 as opposed to 144. So we have seen them take that stand to say we want him out of office. You have seen them, next step is for the Senate to go ahead and make their own decision. And once that decision is made, he's ousted. He's definitely taken out of government. So we'll just wait and see what will happen.
All right, thank you, Veronica. He has mentioned that he's not going down without a fight and he's not going to resign. But speaking of members of parliament voting in support of the impeachment, and like you said, it's an overwhelming majority voting against him. Is this their way to show allegiance to the president? Because I'm thinking of this outward display of loyalty. How will this affect political alliances and realignment in Kenya moving forward? Is this just them voting because they feel, oh, this person is really corrupt and we need to get him out, for justice to be served and for the right thing to be done? Or is this them just doing what Ruto says and what he wants? So, Ayotunde, how do you think this will affect the country and governance going forward? Do you think that this overwhelming vote suggests that the parliamentarians are becoming more assertive in checking government officials, or have they just become like a stooge, for the president?
All right. Thank you so much for your question. To add a bit of more context to Veronica's analysis, the Deputy President Gachagua has publicly admitted that this impeachment could not have gone on without Ruto's approval. And Ruto has noticeably kept quiet on the motion, which was submitted by a member of his ruling coalition. So we see that in a way, Ruto has a hand in this. And all of this boiled down back to where the tensions were escalating following the protests against the unpopular tax hikes that played out in the country earlier this year. So Gachagua was accused of siding with the protesters, and it was once recorded on TV to have blamed the security services for the unrest. So that was the beginning of all of his troubles. So now, narrowing all this down to the future of Kenya politics, we see that these dynamics have played out before. We saw it play out between former President Kenyatta and now the President Ruto. So it's been a pattern in Kenyan politics, and it's even more interesting this time because in a bid to stabilize the country, Ruto had to reshuffle his cabinet and appointed members from the opposition. So it's a bit of a dilemma trying to balance the interests of his party and also the interests of the opposition parties. But we see that the implications of Gachua's potential removal are significant. We saw that the deputy president has warned that his removal could provoke unrest among his supporters. And this is important because he's a very influential figure within the Kikuyu community, which is the largest ethnic group in Kenya. So we can either see spontaneous protests play out against his removal, or there's a high likelihood that there could be orchestrated arrest if he's ousted from governance. And then trying to extend this regionally, any form of political instability in Kenya is going to be a big problem because of the influence they have in the East African region. Kenya is the biggest and the largest economy in that region, accounting for over 40% of the region's GDP, and it's a critical transportation hub. We see that about 80% of the regional trade flows through the port of Mombasa, making the country integral to the economic lifeline of other countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan. So any instability within Kenya can disrupt trade routes and supply chains and lead to drastic economic repercussions across the region.
Yeah, and I think you went over and beyond my question. I was specific about the parliamentarians, but really, thank you for that comprehensive answer. Like you said, this could lead to ethnic tensions between the largest ethnic group in Kenya, which is Kikuyu, which is where the deputy president is from, and then the Kalenjin communities, which is where the president is from. And it seems like Kenya has a long history of ethnic-based political divisions. So I want to ask you, Veronica, specifically, how do you think that this impeachment will exacerbate or heal ethnic tensions in the country?
Okay, I also wanted to add to what Ayo was saying, was like, what will be the effect? I mean, you had said like the parliamentarians have taken a huge stand, and what will be the effect? So I mean, it's a two-way thing. So it's like it's a give and it's a win-win for the parliamentarians. On one hand, they may be, following their leaders' thoughts to say, let's take out the deputy president. On the other hand, it can also be them pleasing their people as well. Because if you remember, the parliamentarians are representatives of their people. So it also shows, so on one hand, it's playing allegiance to the president. On the other hand, it's also playing allegiance for them to their people, right? To say, we're doing the work. You guys protested to say we're not holding people accountable. This is us working. This is us holding someone accountable, right? And again, to like the ethnic tensions, Ayo pointed out that the deputy president has a hold on his ethnic group. So there will also be like, there's the potential for tensions as well. Kenya had this earlier this year, we had already seen protesters on the streets. They had come out in their numbers. There's also a likelihood of it being like an ethnic thing. And this is why ensuring that as a leader, political leaders have to be conscious that they're not only holding leadership positions for themselves, but they're holding it for the people. And they have to be conscious of throwing ethnic lines, and that is what was likely going to play. So hopefully we would watch and see what will happen, but there's a high chance that the Senate will go in line as the Parliament has already gone by removing him. But like you said, Peace earlier, he said he's not going to go down with the fight. So it's just for us to watch and see, and hopefully it doesn't get down to tensions on the street and destabilizing the economy, as Ayo had earlier pointed out.
All right, thank you, Veronica and Ayotunde. So my final question on this is directed to Ayotunde. I'm thinking of the legal aspect of this, especially for African countries generally. So I know that the Deputy President had tried to stop this impeachment process through court orders, but it didn't work. So what does this indicate about the role of the judiciary in the political process of not just Kenya, but in African countries? And do you think there are any legal mechanisms that African countries can adopt to ensure that impeachments are not just tools for political vendettas, but they're actually based on legal grounds, on reasonable reasons? What do you think?
All right. So what we just simply out is the fundamental principles in law of separation of power and the principle of check and balances. So in a way, the judiciary was called upon at first to stop the impeachment proceedings, but they did not. They allowed it to proceed. And next week, Wednesday and Thursday, we'll see it play out before the Senate and hope to see how their decision will be. But we also need to factor in that even if Gachagua gets impeached, he can go and appeal through the courts. So there's still a long process in all of this. And it's crucial that we have the judiciary come to play in this, because this could just be another evidence of executive recklessness. And it's fine that we have the judiciary on standby to be able to check the excesses of the executive. So if he happens to get ousted through this impeachment proceedings and he goes on to make a good case before the judiciary, definitely he might have a chance of getting recalled back to his office. So it's very important for us to see the three arms of government play their role independently.
All right, thank you so much, Ayotunde. Now we'll go to our next story, which is on Rivers State. We just discussed political fallout in Kenya, and we have something like that happening in Rivers State. So, Veronica, can you walk us through the root causes of this crisis in Rivers State? How do you think that the rivalry between different political factions, especially the camps of Governor Fubara and, of course, former Governor Wike, how do you think this rivalry has affected local governance in the state?
I think that I'll start by saying what the root cause is. I think that the root cause is just godfatherism, and it just boils down to saying, oh, when I'm in government, when I leave, I want to put in somebody that would be loyal to me. But at the end of the day, it just shows like godfatherism is not working in this state, and I mean, should not even be worked in leadership. So there's a difference between godfatherism and mentorship. So like as a leader, it's okay for you to have a mentor that would serve as a guide, not as a godfather who would basically streamline things for you to do. So I think that is also the succession problem as well, where one governor is leaving and will decide to put somebody that he feels that he can have an influence over. And it just boils down to the governor of Rivers saying, I'm taking a stand and I'm going to rule as I want to, right? Which is supposed to be what ought to be. Now, how is affecting the local government elections and how is affecting politics in the state is that they are forgetting the fundamentals of why they are even leading as well. It's at the end of the day, it's supposed to be governance for the people, right? And not necessarily governance for the parties. But although we know that parties have like a strong influence on what happens in the state, but at the end of the day, you're a leader for the people. And we've seen the issue go for months now, and now we're witnessing the effects in the local government elections. And of course, it's so terrible for the state, the economy, because it's causing distress. You're having fights, you're having violence. There's a lot of tension in the state as well. But what we saw in the local government election was a victory of a different party, the APP, and the overwhelming majority win for that. But like people have said, this party that won is just a surrogate of the governor amid speculation that he's going to the camp, and the local government chairman's winning against PDP and APC candidates in the result to favor the government. It's a testament to the fact that there's some truth to the speculation as to their victory, provides the much needed mechanisms for him ahead of the next elections.
All right, thank you, Veronica. So, Ayotunde, this particular election, like she said, the APP, Action People's Party, which contains a lot of the Governor Sim's loyalists, won the local government elections, and the PDP and the APC have come out to reject the outcome of the elections. This is quite interesting because generally, it's usually maybe APC wins and the PDP contests or this and that. Like we saw in Edo State where APC won and then the PDP are not accepting the results, but it's quite different here in Rivers State. So what do you think this says about the integrity of local government elections? Was it actually free and fair? How do you think that this dominance by one party, how do you think this will affect local governance and democracy in Rivers State?
All right, thank you so much for your question. Veronica has set the right foundation, showing you how this whole political demonstration was an extension of Governor Fubara's workings. So we saw a new boy on the block, the Action People's Party, securing 22 out of 23 chairmanship positions, while the Action Alliance candidate won 1 seat. This is history kind of being made because traditional parties, the PDP and the APCs, were outside of this. They did not, and they lost out majorly. So it shows you how the conversation about local government independence still has a long way to go in the Nigerian context, regardless of the Supreme Court judgment earlier in the year about how local government should be granted independence in every area. It just shows that in the majority of states in Nigeria, we still have the local government under the whims and caprices of the state governor, and this is played out directly here. So it's hard to now conclude and say this election was free and fair because we just see the machination of the state governor trying to make a statement against a political godfather here. So we can't say this election was free and fair in itself.
All right, thank you, Ayotunde. So the aftermath of the election brought about a lot of violence. The brother of Governor Sim's chief of staff was killed, and there's been a lot of withdrawal of police officers from local government secretariat, and even just different issues that have come along, loss of life, what is going on currently. There seems to be just this trend of political violence generally in Nigeria. It's really sad that we cannot have a proper election where we can just be sure that, at the end of this election, everything will be peaceful and people would just accept the results. So Veronica, what do you think are the potential long-term effects of political violence on the communities involved? Because as it is, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers, the people that suffers. What would be the potential long-term effect of this political violence? And what do you think this is about the security agencies? How can they balance their role in maintaining law and order while also ensuring political neutrality? Because at the end of the day, who they should be protecting is the people, not the people in power, so to speak.
I think that it's very important. I mean, Nigeria, if you've looked at the history, we have experienced a lot of electoral violence during our elections, and we have championed and advocated for things to be done differently to be able to put a hold and a stop to electoral violence. I'll start by saying that if we do not, like, I mean, if you try to dress a house without affecting, like if your house is leaking and you try to just, mop the water without necessarily addressing the root cause of where the water is leaking from, then you're just wasting your time. And I think that that's what we've done time and time again in Nigeria, that we have not taken action against people who and held them accountable for their actions during electoral violence. We need to start persecuting people. We need to show people as scapegoats. We need to show that if you take part in any electoral violence or any electoral offense, you'll be brought to book.
I don't know if it's just me, but Veronica, I stopped hearing you for a while. Ayotunde, can you hear her?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I lost you guys for a while. So, Veronica, can you continue what you were saying?
Okay, I was just saying that if we do not hold people accountable, like that's at the end of the day, we would keep having electoral violence. We'll keep having people lose their lives. And like you said, what is going to be the effect? If two lions are fighting, what will happen? It's the common people that will suffer. It's the people of rivers that would have to bear the high cost of losing their lives, losing their livelihoods. Shops would maybe burn down. Following up and are losing the essence. Okay.
Please go on. My network locked me out again, but I can hear you now.
Okay. I mean, what I was just trying to say is that in all this, right, governance is being left behind, because if the governor and everybody is focusing on ensuring that local government elections are holding, what is happening in that, focusing on that, oh, are we on this? It ends up taking about the essence of governance, right? They focus on one thing and leave governance aside. And like I was saying, like the judiciaries have to, I mean, it's the part to play that judiciary has to play. All arms of government have to ensure that they are working and they are checking on each other. But at the end of the day, it's the people of rivers that would pay for it. They'll pay dearly loss of their economy. I mean, if you can't go to work, if you're scared because of something may happen to you, violence, somebody may lose their lives, loss of property, burning up. I mean, it's just a whole lot, and it's sad what's happening.
All right. Thank you, Veronica. Apologies to everyone listening. I've been having a very bad network. All right. So moving to our last story, because we're running out of time. So we're discussing the NNPC and Dangote Refinery. So the NNPC has decided to end its exclusive purchase agreement with the Dangote Refinery, and now it's opening the market for other marketers. And so it is not going to be on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. So Ayotunde, do you think there could be potential benefits from this decision? And also what challenges could pop up from this decision? Do you think it would lead to a more competitive pricing, or will prices be manipulated from now on?
All right. Thank you for your question. So, for a while now, it has become clear that the NNPC and by extension, the Nigerian federal government could not continue to sustain the subsidy regime because of they've accumulated a lot of debt, huge debt, which they are struggling to pay right now. So it was expected that at some point they will have to totally unsolve the subsidy regime. Because if you go back to the exclusive arrangement that the NNPC had with Dangote Refinery, NNPC was to be the sole off-taker. They were to buy directly from the refinery, then now sell to the marketers. And how that played out was that you will see some bits of subsidy payment in between. And public records show that the NNPC was offsetting about 413 naira per liter. So that was not sustainable for them. And this latest development of going out of that arrangement is the right thing to do because they definitely do not have the funds to continue to subsidize uh, the sale of petrol in the country. So what will happen now is we are going to see a more deregulated market. Marketers can engage directly with the refinery and buy, and then basically we'll see competition do its thing, and whoever wants to sell more will have to like sell at a very favorable price in Nigeria. So in the long run, this might benefit Nigerians, but in the short term, it's definitely going to lead to increment in the price of the cost of petrol. Just today, we saw an announcement that in Abuja, the NNPC retail outlet was selling a liter of fuel for as high as 1,013 naira, which is from the 897 that was previously sold. So that's about over almost 200 naira add on to the price. So this is going to have a lot of negative impact on average Nigeria. Cost of transportation would go up, cost of food would go up. But in the long run, if this arrangement is going to stick, we see the competition bringing down prices in the long run. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ayatunde. Thank you. Yeah, so Veronica, as you mentioned, we're going to see an increase in fuel prices over the next few months. Is there a way the government can balance the need for deregulation with protecting citizens from the impact of high fuel prices? Is there a middle ground between free market principles and then also protecting Nigerian consumers generally?
I think that, like Ayo said, one of the things that the government has decided to do is to like rescind their contract. I mean, so that goes to show that they have seen that in opening the market, it will be better, as Ayo said, in the long run for the Nigerian people, because ensuring that more marketers are able to have access to the Dangote refinery means that it will bring a lot of competition. But it, like you said, in the short run, we may see those growing pains, but in the long run, when you have more people in the market, I mean, we can see what happened in the telecom sector in Nigeria, when at the beginning we just had a few telcos operating in that space. But once they were able to inject a lot of more people and allow them open the market, then you're able to see more competition coming, and prices of SIM cards now are like relatively affordable for anybody, right? So bringing and opening that market would bring a way for Nigerian people to be able to benefit from it. But they would still also have to be able to check the market to ensure that we don't have collusion. So marketers can also collude, right? And, that's why we need the regulators to also ensure that they keep in check, to ensure that they watch collusion, because they can collude and, still control the market prices of petrol in the country. So it's just for government to also be in check and see how they can ensure that they monitor and navigate the system in a way that it is favorable to the Nigerian people at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Veronica, and thank you, Ayatunde, for today.
Thank you so much for having us. It was really a really interesting and engaging conversation.
All right, thank you for participating.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be there.
Yeah, thank you. So to all our listeners, this podcast is by SBM Intelligence. You can access our podcast by searching for SBM Intelligence anywhere you get podcasts. For deeper insight into our work, you can visit our website at sbmintel.com. And remember to connect with us on social media, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn at SBM Intelligence. That will be all for today. See you next week. Bye.